top. Oh, go
Wait,
ahead.
wait a
Go
minute,
ahead.
wait a minute, wait. I'm seeing her on dogs. Why can't you teach a dog to dance? Yeah?
Go on.
No? Because you've got two left feet. All right, you can start now.
Okay, so the essence of today, happy Father's Day for everybody here in Australia. Happy bank holiday for everybody in the States. And just have a happy day, everybody else around the world. I hope you're all doing well. We don't have an actual topic for today. The reason I don't have a topic, one, because it is a holiday in the States and it's also Father's Day here, but we have been receiving a lot of questions or comments or queries about past presentations, and comments are being made about choreography. Comments are being asked about, well, how do things like inversions and conversion modules work with other type of situations? Or one of the most common ones that is being asked is we have the comment of star through followed by a zoom quite often. Why does it work sometimes? Why does it work not work other times? Depending on formation where you want. So what we thought we'd do is just open the floor to comments, conversions, choreography, or any other topic that is open as a general open forum discussion. And the one that I wanted to kick off with was something that is coming up very, very popular, and it's a question that is asked. I've had probably about 30 emails on it. What's wrong with star through followed by a zoom? For instance, if I have a sequence, heads star through, zoom, new centers pass through, something along that line. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, I'm not going to share my screen because I apparently have closed the program that I had open to do that. So give me 1 second and I will open Taminations. Maybe. There we go. You should be able to see Taminations on your screen.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Now, in principle, is star through followed by a zoom good choreographic flow? And the answer is generally no, it's not. But the big question is, why is it not? Why is this considered bad choreography? So if we set up something, let's just, what I've done is I've gone through some videos online, singing calls that people have been doing at big conventions. The dancers don't really have a problem with it. They're all laughing, they're having a good time. But when we look at it, so there is a problem. This is a singing call that was, what do we got here? Dancer one cannot pass through. What do we got? Square through three, center square through three. Okay, let's hang on. Reset. Paste.
Get rid of the period at the very beginning in front of heads.
Really? Paste. Okay. So this is the start, and I've got a few choreographic figures that I've pulled out of older material, or that is being used in presentations today, and a couple that came to me from new callers, which asked, I got this off a singing call figure, and my coach said this is bad, but it's used everywhere. That's just the synopsis. So let's look at this. Head square through three, separate around one to align lines forward and back, star through, and we're just gonna, okay, there's the star through. And the next call is zoom. And of course, we all know, oh, we've got people in the waiting room. Let's just let them in. And we all know that zoom is just a forward and away, stand behind the person that's a trailer. See what happens there? Look at dancers 1 and 3 in the center. A zoom is not the same action as a separate. A zoom is a forward and away from your partner, very much the same as a cloverleaf, but a little bit tighter turn, but the action is still forward and away. Kinesthetically, your body in motion in time, if you do a pass and you're moving forward and to the left, you can still keep going, flowing in an arc comfortably if nothing was in front of you. No different than star through and cloverleaf if you have the ends star through and cloverleaf, because that's a forward action. If you have this kind of a situation where a star through sets you up to a double pass through and you call a zoom, it is very, very bad for both dancers because it causes you to turn either sharply right, and because there's no movement in front of you, sharply in the opposite direction to do a separate. In other words, pass through, face right, face left, and then finish your separate. And the question is, if we finish this with the zoom, and square through 3, pass through, Alaman left, etc. Why is that considered bad body flow when it used to be considered good body flow? Well, the answer, in my opinion, before I open this up for discussion, was quite very succinctly and very correctly summarized by Barry Wanson recently, who said, even though it was used, even though a lot of callers still use it, and it's popular for use by callers, it's bad choreography. And just because it was used way back when and the dancers accepted it, it was still bad choreography back then. It's still bad choreography now. Let's not use it anymore. So star through and zoom was the first topic I thought I would throw out there, and let's open the floor for discussion.
Thank you.
Well,
Also,
I agree 100% on star through and zoom, but for a slightly different reason, because I feel that when you're doing a star through, the dancers are turning towards each other. The boy is turning to the right, the lady's turning to the left, and a zoom requires them to turn in the opposite direction, so the body flow is bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like star through and veer to the left. For the boy, there isn't an issue. It's quite smooth. But for the lady, she's sliding one way and then has to slide back the other way. If you call star through and veer to the right, you find all the men will complain about it.
Yep. I've got Daryl Clendenin, and then Alan had his hand up. I agree with you 100%, Brian. The body turn there, when you have that turn, unless you can have a forward and away action, if you, for instance, set it up from half sashayed lines facing and you call star through and the outside zoom, that is comfortable. But the reason it's comfortable is because they're not doing that tight zoom. What they're actually doing is a cloverleaf. And if that's what you want them to do, why would you not call star through and the outside's cloverleaf? And it's the same with this. If you, instead of calling star through and zoom, why would you not call pass through and separate? Daryl Clendenin, you had your hand up. You're gonna have to unmute, Daryl. Daryl, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I came in late on this. I'm sorry about that. And I saw the star through Zoom, and I did not see the round one to a line forward and back star through Zoom. I will give you this one nice little combination though. If you were to say head star through and Zoom, it's still talking about what you're talking about right now. The uncomfortable part of the star through into a zoom. From a static square, if you said heads pass through cloverleaf and zoom, you'd get exactly the same position. And it's nice and smooth. I don't like star through and zoom either. So.
Yeah.
I think, sorry.
I'm just going to say I feel a little bit, well, probably not embarrassed because we were using it years ago, but I actually put out a record on Gren, I think it was in the 1970s, where I called head star through and zoom, but there's no way I would call that now. As Daryl said, pass through and cloverleaf is a much better combination. It's nice and smooth, flows beautifully, where star through and zoom, although it puts you in the same position, the body flow is not good.
Okay, this is one of the things that comes up a lot with new callers, and if you look at a lot of the choreographic note services and a lot of the stuff that's historically published or old singing call records and documents like Sets in Order magazine, figures like this were very, very popular and very common. They were danced. Nobody ever really questioned it because the callers called it, the dancers danced it, and the rest of the dance was very entertaining. But the reality is, bad choreography then, no matter how much it was used or how it was accepted, is still bad choreography. And we have to get away from this. I am one of those people. I used it and I looked at the body kinesthetics, not a big problem with it if the timing is right. I have since converted because the reality is there is no room, and it is a direction change. The way we danced, the way it was wrong. And as Brian said, this is still on a lot of records. A lot of new callers take what we used to do as a gospel template for starting out. So always check your choreography. I had Alan Kerr next and then Mike Gormley. Alan.
Good morning, all. Sorry for the interruption. I was really just waving good morning, Mel.
Oh, sorry. Good morning.
Seeing I've interrupted the session, the comment for today was from my wife, "Oh, are you going to church today, are you?"
There are those that would say that this is kind of like a religion.
Well, the other thing is that the Australian Sunday hour. But yeah, I agree with what everybody else is saying about star through and zoom. It's not a very good spot to use it, I must admit.
You've actually missed the best part of the whole session, you know, because you weren't here when we were doing the dad jokes.
Oh, were you?
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of leaving because the dad jokes have stopped now.
Oh, right. You mean I've got to watch it later? Sorry, Mel, interruption.
No worries.
Yeah.
Mike Gormley, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering why you can't stack both of the calls and then let the dancers blend the two and make it smooth.
That's another one that's come up, and I think Daryl probably nailed this best. If you call star, and this is just my opinion, I'll open it up, but to address that, if you call star through, you're doing a pass-through turn, and then there's an adjustment with a forward action on the star through, because it's not just pass through and turn, there's the adjustment to take that small step forward. From a static square, let's just reset that. Heads star through. Okay, so there's the forward turn, and you notice how they move forward. A zoom here after that turn means you want to go forward and away the same as you would on a cloverleaf type of action to make a zoom comfortable. It is a forward circular action. From here to go forward, the dancers are going to collide with each other. It's tight, which means that the turning action is pass through, right, or pass through, turn in, and immediately turn out. So it's basically pass through, turn, and turn.
Well, that's what I mean by stacking them. Let them as they get ready for the handhold on the star through. Basically, they know they're going to do a zoom immediately after that. So they don't really complete the star through. They just kind of blend into the.
I agree, and that's why, and that's why I said what Daryl said. If you want them to, essentially what you're saying is just do a pass through and touch your hands as you go by and blend into the zoom. If you want them to do a pass through and then a cloverleaf action, why not just call pass through cloverleaf rather than pass through turn return, or pass through do a partial turn and then zoom blend? And that to me is logical, that you don't want to tell the dancers to do one thing, but don't finish the movement. We want the dancers to dance the movement and blend smoothly into another movement, but we don't want that blend to say, cheat the movement, don't do the movement I'm talking, just do a pass through and slap your hands as you go by. Because we're not challenge dancers. That's my opinion. Anybody else want to talk about the blending before we move on? And then I've got, I believe, we've got somebody here with their hand up, and then Guido. Anybody, any comments on what Mike was asking?
It's what you said, Mel. I don't agree with the fact that there's a forward action for the ladies. There's certainly a forward action for the gents because they pass right shoulders, and to step up beside their partner after the star through, they certainly have a slight forward action, but the girls don't.
Yeah. Sorry, and you are correct. I meant for the men, it's a forward action, but it still brings them closer together in the center. It would be more comfortable for the man to blend into but it's still uncomfortable for the ladies. She's got nowhere to go.
And Daryl made a good point in a message that he sent probably to everybody about the fact that star through and zoom is a little bit of a leftover from star through and substitute, which we don't have anymore, because star through substitute was okay because with a substitute the centers make an arch and back over the others. So it was a good comment from Daryl on that.
I would go along with the fact that pass through and cloverleaf is much better choreography, but my opinion, I kind of go along with Mike a little bit, in that if you time it right, it's not terrible choreography to do the start through and the zoom, but it's poor choreography because you're always going to have two ladies out of four that are going to kind of have a reverse motion there as they start the zoom. But my opinion on things like that is that, if you haven't found a better substitute like we've just seen, if you want to use it, poor choreography as opposed to bad choreography to be where everybody's just kind of doing a reverse or bad flow, then just use it once or twice, but don't overdo it.
Yeah.
A good example would be if you do a touch a quarter and have the boys zoom. Now we're going to argue whether the boys that's okay or not.
Right.
I'm going to be coming to zoom from columns as well. I wanted to explore zoom, but it came from the star through zoom as the foundation. So I've got a few more sequences, but I wanted to get rid of the star through and zoom. Just as a quick poll, how many think that star through zoom occasionally is okay? Anybody? 1, 2, 3. How many people think that it is just bad body flow, even though it was common, let's not use it anymore? Okay. For me personally, I used to use it a fair bit, especially teaching basics, because it was a nice, neat combination for basic dancers. But I also realized that when I looked at a lot of these teaching videos, it was done in stop time. And the zoom was not being done as a zoom, it was done as a star through, stop, and then zoom was being taught as a separate, not a zoom. And if we want to call star through separate, that's even worse choreography, but it's the same flow. Or if we want to call pass through and cloverleaf, let's call pass through cloverleaf. Now, here's a question. If I have, hang on. If I have lines, let's do a half sachet. Okay. Star through. Sorry, can't do that. Where are we here? Undo. Ends. I would have to have boy, boy, girl, girl lines here, but if I called star through and the outside zoom leaders trade or star through zoom, would you agree that regardless of the formation, star through and zoom is a bad combination?
Yep.
Yes?
I see no reason to call something like that. The difference between any good choreography and bad choreography is usually something small like that. And of course, we're all trying for the nice, smooth movement of dancers. That's why they call it dancing, isn't it?
Yep. Now, absolutely. And the last portion of this, one of the reasons why it has become acceptable, it was a bit of a conversation, I don't know if Guido remembers it, we were having just at the beginning. When you do a star through, your hands are in contact, and one of the reasons it probably became accepted is your hands are in contact, you did that star through, the adjust, and you pushed away from each other, which gave that feeling of dancing and body flow with hand contact. But it's still, star through zoom is more comfortable than slide through zoom, but star through zoom is still bad body flow. And that's the approach that I'm taking. And I admit, up until a few years ago in a lot of conversations with Barry, I used it. I try to stop using it. Now, it'll still slip out occasionally. I'll admit I'm not infallible, but it still slips out. Okay.
Can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just something that I've just started doing here lately, and I have seen some questions and stuff about star through in Zoom, and I don't know if it's new idea or not, but what I started doing using Tamnations is, okay, so star through in Zoom, I would get rid of, instead of calling that, I would put star through and roll, and then see how they moved in Tamnations. And if you do that in Tamnations here, you see that they're turning into each other. So and then you think, okay, they're turning this way on the roll. So Zoom would be total opposite direction. And to me, that says that it wouldn't be good flow.
Yeah.
That's actually a good test. One of the big failings that a lot of callers do today is they use computer programs as their choreographic checkers or their choreographic writers. And most computer programs don't anticipate hand and body flow. But adding a roll to check body flow, especially on things like that, that's actually a good idea, Mark. Guido, you had your hand up?
Yeah. I don't have that big of a problem with stars in Zoom per se, but what I see by a lot of callers is the rush hour traffic calling, stop and go and stop and go. And this is very bad. If the dancers hear the Zoom soon enough, and I say, if you don't have a clover leaf yet, and you want to have it, I'd say it's okay occasionally, but it should not be. No combination should be a regular combination, because you train the dancers to do that, and when you use star through Zoom too often, dancers will never dance a Zoom correctly.
Yeah.
Because of bad training.
Yeah. One of the things that came up in a discussion with Betsy Gotta was, but we don't have cloverleaf, so we can't do pass-through and cloverleaf. That's not in our program, and Zoom's further on when we get down there. But I looked at all the teaching orders, and she uses the condensed teaching order. You do have separate. And what's wrong with pass-through cloverleaf or pass-through separate and stand behind the others? It does exactly the same thing. Daryl, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was about to say there's nothing wrong from a static square saying head separate and star through.
That's correct.
Going to put you in exactly the same place you are. And I was going to suggest exactly what you had said as well. So, yeah, thank you.
And it is one of the things that we as callers, this is why it's really, really good to look at movements and combinations like this, because we as callers, when was the last time you as a caller, unless you're calling to a new dancer class and you're teaching separate, when was the last time, except for you, Brian, because I know you do this a fair bit, call things like heads separate and star through, or heads separate around one, lines touch, very few callers call a heads separate from a static square. We call pass through separate, or we call, And I know Jeff does it as well, and he likes to set up his plus group, which separates into right and left throughs from tidal waves and things like that. So,
can I just give you another example, Mel? If you California 12 from a stellic thread, have the heads California 12, and then separate, it's the same dance action you're talking about.
mm-hmm.
There's actually a new movement that's going to be added to the Caller Lab program, I'm sure, because this is one that I've thought up that I use quite a lot, and that is a Bumpsa-daisy, which is a really good figure. If you have heads, turn your back on your partner, and Bumpsa-daisy, meet behind the sides and star through. It's so much nicer than just saying heads separate. Go and stand behind the side, star through. So Bumpsa-daisy, I think, has got to go into the program. Yeah.
Question came in. Did I answer the? Can you call heads pass through cloverleaf zoom? And the answer to that is absolutely, because there's no conflict of body flow. Okay, so I think we're pretty much all in general agreement that star through or slide through followed by a zoom is just bad choreographic flow anywhere. And regardless of what you're trying to achieve, whether you're in a completed double pass through, a trade by, or a double pass through, there are a lot of alternatives which are much more comfortable and much easier to dance than that.
Mel, can I ask a quick question off of Mark's?
Absolutely.
On terminations, does it always correctly do the roll? Because usually you're rolling into your partner, but if you've got that motion, you're going away from your partner.
No, I don't know if it does it for all of it. I haven't checked all of the motions, but for instance, if I do, let's just reset this. We'll double check this. If we do heads right and left through. Normally a roll, dancers anticipate turning to face the person they're standing beside or the person they're touching hands with. But a roll is defined to go in with the body flow. So if I do a heads right and left through and roll, they should all turn left, and they do all turn left. Okay. But you're absolutely correct. It's always worth checking, because all these computer programs are only as good as the person that programmed them. And the person that programmed them, although they are absolutely fantastic, every now and then a piece of choreography comes up which is very usable and very easy to do, but it was just missed in the programming. So when you see a glitch like that, get a hold of Brad or Reinhold that did Colorama and that, and let them know that there is a problem.
Try a U-turn back and roll. I'm curious.
Heads, turn back, and roll. That goes with the body flow. Okay, and it's actually interesting because you turn back. A lot of people miss that in the definitions. If you remember when we went back to our definitions session, a U-turn back is always turned towards your partner unless your body flow dictates otherwise. So it's perfectly feasible to have a U-turn back with both dancers turning right and both dancers turning left, if that's what your body flow was.
That might have been actually what I was thinking of instead of the roll, was the U-turn back, because that would be a problem, especially with a U-turn back and roll like that.
Okay, so let's go back to Zoom, because this is what's come up with. Well, if you can't do star through in Zoom, how about something like this? This is a Zoom after a sweep a quarter. So these are singing call figures that have been pulled out of old records or videos. Right and left through, heads, flutter wheel, sweep a quarter, zoom, and zoom again. Square through 5, blah, 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 or a pass through if you want. Swing your corner and promenade. Any comments on that? Sweep a quarter followed by a zoom. Ed, you've got your hand up? So I'll start with you.
I think that's an anticipation cheat to actually have it flow well. Otherwise, the person that's moving toward the center has to all of a sudden move back away from the center.
In this example, it's just bad for the ladies.
Yeah, it'll be the bad for the ladies.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at the sweep a quarter, which is for the ladies because it's not usually danced as a forward pivot, the same as a wheel and deal type action. It's usually a sliding action for the right-hand dancer, be it a lady or a man, if they're sweeping that way. So if you look at that, she's moving sideways and to the left. For the boys, they're moving that way. Getting out of there is not really much of a problem. But that lady, she's sliding sideways, and now she has to do that action. Hard right turn. And yet this is another one that pops up quite frequently. A sweep a quarter followed by a zoom. Anybody think that that's really good flow?
No good for ladies.
And an incorrect movement for the boys. They don't go forward for the zoom. It's just like the star through and zoom. They just go sideways. And teaching them a wrong movement for the star through, for the zoom action.
Can we just clarify the idea of going back to your star through and zoom from a static square? If you have the hedge pass through and then call run and roll, that's effectively the same thing, isn't it? Now, the question I want to ask is, if you call separate here, and you want them to face the back of normally they should not face the back of the side couples.
No.
So, but when you say separate around, and you're meaning to come in around one, does that around then mean that they're going to face back into the square as part of the action, or does it just...
No. Separate around one is usually followed by a prompt to align. And if you look at the nomenclature in the movement separate, you've got separate is exactly that. Separate, go around 1/4 direction, end up in that position facing the next call or the next directional prompt. Separate around one to align, or separate around one, come down the middle, is the directional prompt. And that is perfectly acceptable to achieve that. The same as if you wanted them to stand behind, separate and stand behind is the directional prompt. So you would not use separate around one to get that face in, to stand behind. You would use separate and stand behind them. You can't do that in tamination, so you would just separate and face in, so outsides.
Another example where it occurs is hedge double star through, and then often we cloverleaf. But in that case, there's plenty of room for them to step forward and go into the cloverleaf.
And that is the big difference. Absolutely, that's the big difference that we're talking about. A cloverleaf is defined as a forward and away flowing action. Zoom is defined as a slightly forward circular loop, and that circular loop is not a sharp right turn and move. It's a circle goes forward and around in a loop, and there's no room for that forward action. Daryl, did you have your hand up?
I did. I'm not going to swear to this, but I'm pretty sure that a separate says that you'll separate from your partner, back with your partner, separate and go as far as directed. You can go around one, you can go around two.
That's
you
correct.
Can go clear down to the other, and now maybe a nice equivalent for right and left through would be head separate and round two and star through down to the other end. I don't know that there's any hard and fast rule that says you can only do this, is what I'm saying. The idea of pass through and separate and stand behind the sides, you don't have to go around one that I know of, but yeah, check it out. Aren't these Zoom sessions wonderful?
Okay. So what we've got is the dance action, which is what we're here, and there's a number of cases for separate. the dancers turn back to back. That's a 90-degree turn on the spot, and start walking forward in the opposite direction around the outside square until they meet another dancer, which means that's where they stop on a separate. The call ends unless further direction is given, which is what Daryl's saying. It is a directional prompt. If you just call heads separate, it ends when they end face to face, standing behind the sides. In case 2, this is what we have, is directional prompts. Separate around 1 to a line. Heads separate around 2 to a line. Sometimes you can do around 3. Whatever direction you give is what the dancers do. And that could be separate around 1, come into the middle. Separate around 1 to a line. Separate, go around 2, hook on the end, make a line. Separate around 2, come into the middle and do something. That's the directional prompt, and that's where your timings are. And if you look at, here's the third case, separate around 1 or 2 and come into the middle. And as Daryl said, you can actually go 3. It doesn't go into that because the variety that you can have separate, go around 3 and make a line, which means you going all the way around, you're just eating up a lot of time. But that's the directional prompts. And this is why it's important to actually look at the definitions, because separate has a dance action, that's the dance action, or as otherwise told. But the definition itself starts there and keeps on going for separate.
Oh my God.
Or a page and a half.
And it doesn't cover the circumstances where it doesn't clarify whether you can say heads pass through and just the boys separate.
Yes, that's correct. And those are the innovations, and all choreographic definitions are like that. Sorry, I shouldn't say all choreographic. Most choreographic definitions are like that. They give you the general, the most common, and did I close tab? No, I didn't close tab. There we are. Okay, they give you the most common, but the variations of extended and really weird are not all there. It will not cover everything. Yes, Daryl?
There is just a ton of really good, easy, simple choreography that you can use for the dancers if you'll just use that separate. There's just
absolutely
a ton of stuff that you can do, and it's fun. Call it a lot. I'll tell you that now. And yes, I did call it this last Monday. I will call it here in about 2 hours. So I'm going to be very short with the meeting today, but thank you very much. I'm enjoying this, and I wish that I could stay for all of it, but I'll be around for a little bit longer.
Okay. So
in the case of the heads pass through and just the boys separate, would it not end when the number 1 boy meets the number 3 girl and is T-boned?
Yep. By the definitions, yes, but Alan, when he would call that, he would probably have something else in mind, and it would be into case 1B or 2B, where it would be followed by a directional prompt. So just the boys separate, go around 1, make a line of 3, or something along that line.
I sometimes, for fun stuff, I'll have things like, and this is not a separate, but it feels a bit like a separate. If you have, say, head boys, take both girls up to the middle and back, and then lonesome boys pass through and turn either direction, right or left, go around 3 and make a line of 3, 4, or 5, and then everybody join hand circle to the left. You know, it's sort of going, but it's fun for the dancers, because sometimes, you know, you'll end up with a line of 5, other times you'll end up with a line of 3, other times you'll end up with 2 lines of 4. But it's just so simple and so easy for the dancers to understand, and you can't get into trouble with it.
Yep. And that falls very much into what Daryl was saying. There is so much simple, easy choreography with directional prompts or movements like separate that we do our dancers an injustice by not using them, and we do a greater injustice by using combinations like star through zoom instead of pass through separate or pass through cloverleaf. And we're all pretty much in agreement with that. We've also agreed that a sweep a quarter followed by a zoom is bad choreography because it has that flow. But here's another one that happens all the time, and that is Ferris wheel and zoom. So if we look at this action, and like I said, we're just talking zoom for the, these are all taken from singing calls that are out there, old historical documents and things like that, that are common use that people, so we've got the Ferris wheel and the zoom. So let's just go back here. So we're going to finish the Ferris wheel. Now, if we did that flutter wheel and sweep a quarter, notice it's a very different action on the Ferris wheel, but it's still a tight turning movement followed by a zoom. So let's open that for discussion. Who thinks that's comfortable? Who thinks that's uncomfortable? Let's just start with a quick poll. Who thinks that would be acceptable? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who thinks that would not be acceptable? A Ferris wheel followed by a zoom. 1, 2, 2. Who is just sitting on the fence and is waiting for the group collective? 1, 2. About the same.
I'm thinking about the Ferris wheel and spread. And in the same way, because if you do the Ferris wheel and zoom here, it seems like I'd have to look at that some more, but the Ferris wheel and spread has the same type of action, I think, in some ways.
Yeah.
And you're also told to anticipate it.
Okay. Any other comments before I put mine in?
Well,
are we dancing this? Are we dancing this in the way it's defined, or the way the dancers dance Ferris wheel into the middle, where they drag them like Neanderthals?
Yeah, you have to consider both. However, a Ferris wheel, I'll put this out because this is my point in the discussion. A Ferris wheel has a very different flow than a sweep a quarter. Daryl, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much square breathing there is with the Ferris wheel in comparison to what you did with the flutter wheel. Space sometimes plays a part in what we can do. Probably wouldn't call it. It hadn't occurred to me to call a zoom after Ferris wheel. But at the same time, I think somebody said with proper good timing or a little good lead time, I don't think it would be that bad.
Okay.
I don't know whether it would be particularly bad, but it looks like you've got two boys that are kind of at least slightly reversing themselves in order to do the zoom, but the two boys in the center are kind of going to their right and then back to the left. But other than that,
I'm not looking at the boys. I'm looking at the girls.
Okay.
Okay. So, and Guido, you said you're looking at the girls. That's why you would not call that. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now,
at the girls.
Sorry, hang on. Masako,
the zoom
did you have
action
your
for
hand
the
up?
boys. The zoom action for the boys is easy, but for the girls, it's a terrible turn for the girls.
Okay. Masako, did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't. But I was wondering, what's the difference between the sweep a quarter more and the Ferris wheel inside part? Maybe I should learn more about the definition of the Ferris wheel. That's why I don't know if I want to agree with the movement or I don't like the movement. I cannot.
That's a very valid question, and that goes into what Ed was saying. Are we talking about how Ferris wheel is supposed to be danced, or how a lot of guys dance Ferris wheel, grabbing the lady's hand and dragging them half sideways at an angle into the position? A sweep a quarter is dancers staying face to face and sliding, pivoting face to face. So it's almost a sliding sideways action, which is what makes it uncomfortable for following with a zoom. A Ferris wheel is a forward turning action. And this is the difference that I see in this. When you account for dancer anticipation, I agree. The boys' part, if I called Ferris wheel, I would not call Ferris wheel, pause, 2, 3, stop, you're finished the dance, zoom. I would call Ferris wheel and zoom. The boys would blend into it. The big difference I see is look at the girls' body flow here. When they finish the Ferris wheel, what direction are they turning?
Outside.
They're already turning right. And if you remember what Mark said, if you call a roll, that'll tell you if you have body flow to do that movement. If I called Ferris wheel and roll, the girls would be doing a right-hand turn. So that would blend in. But on a Ferris wheel, as Daryl said, you have to account for things like square breathing. A Ferris wheel is one of those movements that does expand the square and give more room on the inside. You could get a lot of work and a lot of mobility out of Ferris wheel and zoom. It would flow well because the boys could blend into the forward and away action. The girls are already rolling in that direction to keep turning and go around and stand behind. The action flow has lots of room to dance that movement. So, and it is used a lot in a lot of singing calls. So the question is it good body flow? Is it acceptable body flow, or is it bad body flow? Floor is open.
The 540-degree turn.
I would personally consider it to be acceptable body flow.
Yeah, I'd say acceptable, but not necessarily good, but acceptable.
Mel,
Arthur?
if you
Hang
call...
Hang on, Arthur, do you have a comment there?
Am I allowed to comment? If you call Ferris wheel and roll, who actually is going to roll? Is everybody going to roll?
Yep.
I would think so.
You find out where the noise was, Mel?
No, I did not. And yes, everybody would roll because everybody should be turning.
Can I just say something about your characterization of sweeping? When you circle left, you don't move sideways. You actually turn and walk in the direction you're moving. And the sweep a quarter action, I believe everybody would do this exactly the same thing. They would turn their bodies and walk forward. And so everybody in those calls, you have to assume that the body action is forward for everybody, surely.
Yep. And this goes back to what Ed was saying and what Masako was saying. In an ideal world, we teach our dancers join hands, face slightly left, walk, and shuffle your feet. How many people actually circle left like that, or do they circle left like this? Okay, or they circle left and they sort of walk sideways and keep facing that way. When we look at anticipation, how many people dance a Ferris wheel as a forward touch hands, wheel and deal so that they're all moving forward, or do they do it as a drag and slide? How many people dance a sweep a quarter as facing couples, maintaining that position and rotating? The reality is dancers don't dance the way the movements are taught. They dance the way the dancers are comfortable. And as Barry said, what was acceptable way back was not, it was only acceptable because that's what we used because we were callers and we were lazy and it was all fun and it was all hype. Bad choreography then is still bad choreography now. My opinion on Ferris wheel and zoom, I think it's acceptable as long as it's not overused because it has timing. If it's timed well, it's got space because the square has breathed out on the Ferris wheel. It's got body flow, and for the right-hand dancer, the turn is already in place. For the left-hand dancer, if we're doing a standard Ferris wheel, for the left-hand dancer, it's anticipated that you're going to be coming in, going forward and away, and there's ample room to conduct that action. That's my opinion, but now I think, Mike, you had your hand up, and Jeff, you had your hand up. No?
No, I
Jeff?
was just, you asked how many did this or whatever, and I put my hand up to
Okay.
say I'm one of those.
Okay, we've got Jeff and then we've got Alan.
Yeah, we have some people that don't do Zoom properly anyway. They do a substitute. They take a shortcut. And the way I've found to fix that is call Zoom once and a half, and that buggers them.
I'm coming up to that one in a bit. Alan, you had your hand up.
My comment is if you're doing a wheel and deal from normal lines facing out, and then you're going to add the zoom after that, that's perfectly acceptable, isn't it, for most people? And of course, the turning action for the boy who's on the tightest turn is the body roll is correct for the zoom.
That's correct.
You think that's why it works better from that situation? They're in
Sorry, go ahead.
They're in the same formation as they would be after the head star through, but the difference is the body action of the man on that occasion is the more critical one, I think.
I look at that, and that's absolutely correct, because if you look at the flow on this, let's just pause that. Although it's not a Ferris wheel, the same principle of body motion is in play. The square is going to expand because the wheel and deal and the right shoulder passes. Just ignore the fact these girls actually pass through each other like ghosts. But if you notice that body flow, your zoom would be called about here. The boy would finish that. His body is turning already left, and the girl would anticipate that to flow forward and away, anticipating the call. You would not call that in a stop action unless you deliberately stopped to create a gap. Star through, wheel and deal, and zoom. That was the next example coming up. And I agree with you 100%. Okay, now the last one that we had on here.
Is Guido asking for this one?
Oh, sorry, Guido. Yes.
Guido.
When I said I was looking at the girls, they were turning too much, and when I'm observing dancers, it's usually the ladies who opt to walk backwards. They walk backwards in a circle to a line. They walk backwards in a wheel and deal. They just don't have the patience to take a step forward or 2 steps forward and then do a turning. But on a Ferris wheel from a right-hand two-faced line, on a Ferris wheel and zoom, the ladies turn 540 degrees. If you do it from a left-hand two-faced line and call it the same thing, it's the boys who would turn 540 degrees without a stop, without a goal in between, which I think is uncomfortable. It's not the direction of turn. It's just the amount of turn that I'm looking at.
Yeah, the difference with that would be the forward looping action, because it's a large loop, and that's a very, very good point on conversation as well. We tend to, when we look at overflow, and I believe this is what you're referring to, we tend to think of overflow as, I'm a girl, touch a quarter, girls run. That is overflow, and we're spinning around in a tight circle. But overflow also counts if your motion is constant, even with those large circles and spirals. You can create overflow if your direction of turn is always one direction. That's why you need the forward actions or the direction changes. Excellent comment. Yes, Daryl.
I don't know. I'll look it up on my own later, I suppose. I've got to go look at the actual definition of Ferris wheel. Can somebody tell me what that is right offhand?
Yep.
Daryl, I prefer the old one.
Okay, so each couple step forward. Out-facing couples do their part as a wheel and deal. In-facing couples, they're going to go forward, and they make a momentary two-face line, and without stopping, wheel and deal.
Yeah,
So there's
that tells me that somebody is backing up.
No.
On a wheel and deal is a forward action with a small pivot, forward turning pivot. It's not a backup. There's no backup action in a wheel and deal.
You should take a step forward on the wheel and deal before turning.
That's correct.
And then the center dancer is already in the same position where you should end. It just gets turned around by the end dancer.
And on a wheel and deal, each couple work as a unit is a smooth one action, even though blah, 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 blah. Okay,
Yep.
so from a two-face line, each couple step forward and then wheels 180 degrees in towards the center. So it's a forward blending action. The problem is...
You're saying the pivot point is between the two dancers of each couple.
No, the pivot point is the center dancer.
Where the two dancers touch hands, that's the pivot point. But for that dancer, for the inside dancer, it's essentially the same as doing a fold. For the outside dancer, it's the same as doing the cross fold. But
I don't know. To my mind, it looks like it would be a from the two-phase line, couples do half of the couples trade and bend the line. Is that the way it works? No.
For the center dancer, it's a U-turn back towards the center.
I disagree with that because they don't do a U-turn back. They have to actually move in to that where their hands.
No, they are at the actual position where they should end.
I disagree with that.
Not veering.
Look at it. Draw pictures.
If they're here, hang on. Yeah. If they're here and the center dancer did a U-turn back, they're not going to be facing. They've got to come in a bit still. There is an adjustment, but and it is a forward blending action. The reality is, and this goes back to what Ed was saying, how it's written and how it's supposed to be danced and how it is danced are not always the same.
Yeah,
that's why I teach my dancers. I show you how to dance it smoothly and easy, and your choice. It's your choice to dance it awkwardly.
Oh yeah, like as Daryl said. But if I look at, for instance, I'll just take a facing couple here.
I think we see some dancers often backing up a little bit because they're trying to give other people room, maybe.
If I have the center dancers just do a U-turn back, so I'll have the girls turn back.
No. You have to have them take them a step forward first.
Okay, so.
But unless they're veering.
And no. When they take a step forward first, and now you do the wheel and deal action, the ladies remain in the same spot.
Okay,
just the boys needs to go around. The distance between the ladies is the same as the distance between the lady and the boy.
Yeah, what I'm saying is this right here. If I had the girls turn back on the spot, which is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hang on. Don't worry about the turning direction. Yeah. And the boys run. Which would be the spot that they're in. That's where they. The girls would end up where the boy is standing right now.
Can you loop on that?
Yeah, they'd be slightly offset.
They would be offset.
Yeah.
Whereas a wheel and deal means that this girl is going to actually end up moving in, and this girl is actually going to move.
Well, before you let them do the movement, just look at the vertical axis. And the lady is the same in the same axis as before.
Yes.
I agree.
The
She
movement
just
looked
as a
like it
U-turn.
backed up,
She
though.
just as a U-turn back, turned by the outside dancer.
I agree with you, Guido.
Yeah.
She's in
But
the
of
same
course
spot.
But of course, you're making the assumption, Guido, they step forward, and they
Yeah.
don't always do that.
Yeah, but that's not my fault teaching them. It's what they opt in to do.
Okay. So,
Even here, it's a step back for the ladies.
yes, I see what you're saying. Yes. Okay.
Maybe you could call it the step forward and do a reverse wheel around. Would that be about what you're talking about?
No.
Because
It would be.
To me, I
It
still
would be.
I still see that lady backing up somewhat.
Yeah, but she shouldn't.
Yeah, she shouldn't. But the reality is, the way people dance it happens. Yeah. What did I want to do here? Oh, sorry. Cancel.
Just like you said on Circle to a Line, the young lady should never be backing up. Actually, she should be walking forward and twirling under at the end.
Yeah, there is no backing up on a circle to a line, but that's the way it's danced.
Yeah, but that's why I say the ladies must like to walk backwards because they do it. That's on their own free will.
I'm not going to put myself into that position. But I don't think the ladies like to dance backwards. I think they've just adapted to men being overly assertive over the last 60 years of square dancing and following along.
No, when I look at dancers, even newly taught dancers that have no history in square dancing, they do it all by themselves. They just are not patient enough to take that step forward until the final destination.
Yeah, that goes into the old context that God created women to dance backwards. And if you look at any dance form that we have, waltz, forward box, which way is the lady going? Left turning box, the lady's going right. All of these things they're all directed to the men historically for the last 3,000 years. It's going to take a while. We've now got more lady callers than we had men. We noticed that the right-hand flow for the dances and everything else always had the women doing the corkscrew and the backing up. Now that we've got lady callers, we notice the men are doing a lot of this action, and actually choreography is becoming a lot smoother because a lot of lady callers have finally said, you know what, this is what it feels like, guys, and guys are starting to pay attention. But that's a whole different discussion. I'm going to press forward here with this. This is the last part of Zoom that we were talking about, which had been mentioned, which is zoom off of columns or zoom off of that kind of stuff. So this is, and these, once I said, again, these are all singing calls that have been pulled off of records, out of sets in order, or off choreographic programs that are pulled down and are used by newer callers a lot of the time without being checked as to what they are, and in some cases experienced callers. So this is a singing call. Heads pass through, separate around one to a line, followed by a left touch a quarter, center zoom, that's the only time that is actually a correct call, followed by a circulate, a zoom, boys run, pass through, trade by, box the net, pass through, and swing your corner and promenade. And it's actually a full promenade. This was done at one of the European conventions. The floor had absolutely no problem with this. It's fine. However, let's have a look at the actual choreography. So we got pass through, separate around one. We've talked about that. And that is a good alternative to star through and zoom. Left touch a quarter. And that is immediately followed by a centers zoom, which is acceptable because we're just having the centers. We've got leaders and trailers. Now, what do you think about that choreography of left touch a quarter followed by a centers zoom?
Nice change of direction.
Okay.
Enforced change of direction.
Okay. So you've got the touch a quarter. This goes back to that same argument that we had of blending. It's not crowded because the outsides are not doing anything. Oh, I'm sorry, that is crowded because touch a quarter is not a breathing square, so it's right in front. Blending into the star through and just the boys, or star through and the center zoom has the boys blending away right there, so they're not actually finishing the star through.
The touch a quarter.
You know, that left touch a quarter has the flow. It's going in the correct direction. If it's blended in, if the left touch a quarter is finished, it's an awkward direction change. Let's open it up. Let's open it up and see what people think.
Why not call left touch a quarter single file circulate center zoom? I know it's different formation, but there'd be no body flow issue then.
Okay. What Brian is saying is if you're going to do a zoom from a column, if you're following it, if you've done a touch a quarter, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're doing something, a touch a quarter, something that gets you into a column that has that 90-degree turning action, if you're going to use a zoom, put a circulate in front of it. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And I agree with that. Arthur, you had a comment.
Is it not possible to be calling something like that, and even the previous formation, in order to get away from it being too vanilla?
You could. This is where you get into the argument of dance by definition. Is this being danced by definition? Absolutely. We hear center zoom. Don't use center zoom. This is a case where center zoom is absolutely appropriate. It is a perfectly good call. But because the definition is there, and because this is, well, a normal floor in Europe maybe in some places, but if this is danceable material because the definition says so, does dancing by definition or using extended applications forgive bad choreographic flow? My opinion is no, it doesn't. You can easily have this get rid of plain vanilla by doing what Brian said. Add a circulate in there. You're still getting the definition of the zoom, the center zoom. You're still getting the action, which is the dancers knowing the definitions and formations, and you're still meeting all your requirements. But you have not created a flow issue or a bad body flow issue. So doing something for the sake of definition or interest does not forgive bad body flow. That's my opinion.
I don't think we use this enough because, like, I do call it, and I find that if I call from a column like we have there now, and then you do a single file circulate and the ladies zoom, for some reason or other, the trailing lady always wants to roll back instead of walking forward.
Yep.
You know, and we probably need to do this sort of thing more frequently, and I have fun with it. I get them into that position, so I've got the ladies in the middle, and I do just the ladies zoom, and then spend a couple of moments sorting it out when they've gone wrong, and then I'll do it again, and then I'll do them single file circulate twice, so that we now got the boys in the middle, and then you say, now boys, don't let me down, boys trade.
Yeah. And that's having fun with the dancers and playing, and it's not something that you would do over and over and over again.
No.
Okay.
Then that you say that the boys are so much better dancers than the girls. Look, they didn't make a mistake.
Now this is the second. This is the second part of that singing call figure. I'll be right with you, Alan. And this does what Brian was saying there. Notice after we've done that touch a quarter center zoom, which I think we all agree that that's awkward. This is from the column. We've got a circulate. Look at the flowing action. Now we've got leaders and trailers followed by a zoom. And you would prompt that zoom, girls are going back, boys are stepping forward. Notice how much more comfortable that looks, even from a dancer's perspective, just by adding a circulate into the flow. You get that forward action, and it's easier to define who's going to go away or forward. I've got Masako Oh, I think she was just waving goodbye. Mike Gormley, you had a question. I've got Jeff. So we'll start with Mike. Mike, was your question? You said you had a topic change. Is this about the Zoom, or do you want to wait till we're done with
change.
this? Okay. We'll grab you as soon as we're almost done with the Zoom thing. Jeff, you had a comment.
Yeah. From a normal line, zero line, right and left through, so it's out of sequence. I don't know whether you'll be able to do this one, but anyway, left touch 1/4. Circulate twice. Then zoom 1.5 to a right and left ground.
Sorry, Jeff, you've muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. That's if they don't substitute instead of Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and there is a lot of choreography like that. So, for instance, from a column, and you look at that, I noticed most choreography that if they're going to use a zoom from a column, set it up with a left-hand column. My own personal take on that, the reason for that is because it's not a some are going left, some are going right. It's more comfortable for both the men and the women, because it's a habit, to go right. I don't see a lot of choreography with a right-hand column doing a left-hand zoom. Theoretically, it should be perfectly fine. My own personal theory on that is I have no idea. Women are used to doing it. It's good for men to actually have a change of direction.
Peel off from the columns has the same feel as
absolutely
as the zoom from the column.
Oops, sorry. And you can take Jeff's idea and you can go. Let's do. Okay, so heads. Let's get a static square here first. So heads. Lead right. Oh, I'm not in the static square, that's why. So if we do something like heads, lead right, right and left through, flutter wheel and sweep 1/4. No, I don't want to do that. Undo. Heads, lead right, right and left through. Let's do a veer left. Let's give that a time, forward and back. Left touch 1/4. Now we've all agreed that rather than call a zoom here, we would want to do a circulate, because that gives us much better body flow. But what about doing something like this? Half zoom. Of course, we do a balance there, or check your wave or something like that. Boys trade, swing through. Or boys run, promenade corner. You know, something along that line. Any comments on that?
Would you need the balance is my question.
That's more of the same as forward and back, or the balance. That is just a prompt to allow your dancers to see the action. To me, those are weaning, what I call weaning moves. If you're introducing a new concept like a half zoom from a column, you may want to give them a zoom 1.5, check your wave, or zoom 1.5 to the partner. You've got those things. And eventually you would wean out of those, zoom or do a half zoom and the centers trade. But initially I would probably do a half zoom, check your wave, centers trade once or twice, and then I would drop the centers trade or the balance or whatever.
You let that play through again?
Sure.
I was looking, as soon as you did that, I thought half zoom and hinge and the boys run would be a good flow as well. Probably.
Bend the line. I did a forward and back because I'm using a left touch a quarter. Circulate, which we agree. There's the half zoom centers trade. Boys run. After the swing, you could do a swing your corner and promenade for a singing call figure, or you can do a boys run. You could do a boys circulate and promenade. You can do all sorts of things, because however you do it, or even, you know, from here, boys circulate, bend the line, and you're in a corner line. Whatever you want to do to sort out your choreography. I wasn't really looking at the singing call. It was just that flowing action. But I think it pretty much goes to attest that if you're going to do a zoom from a column, if you want your dancers to succeed and you want good, comfortable choreographic flow, put a circulate in there. Is that pretty much generally the agreement?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. And I at the advanced level, when you do a I've gone blank on the call now, where you have the outside dancer rolling back. It's often better to have the end circulate and then go into that action for the same reason. Yes.
In roll, out roll, circulate.
Yeah. Then we're getting into A2 levels and challenge levels.
What about just runs from a 8-chain through position to get into the column? Do you need it for the zoom on that?
So heads square through. Hang on. And that's what you're saying. So I'm setting that up. So I've still got the ladies as the leaders, and you're saying zoom. Okay. So let's play that and see what happens. We're setting it up. We'll do a pass through. All the boys run right. And we want to follow that with a zoom. Oops, sorry. What do people think about that?
Looks fine.
Okay.
Another example where it would be is from a grand two-face line where you half tag.
Please ignore this part of the choreography. Okay, so this is our setup for a grand two-face line. Is this the setup you wanted, Alan?
That'd be fine, yes. I would get there different, but yeah, from here.
Oh yeah, I wasn't worried about getting there. I just okay. So what you're looking at is half tag and zoom.
Half tag and zoom.
Okay, so
Guido's shaking his head. There's a problem.
Okay, so if we look at that there, there's our two-face line. The flow we're looking at is half tag, so that's the turning action, followed by a circulate type action, which is moving forward, even though it's just a step, followed by a zoom. Okay, so we have by the half tag gives it that circulate flow. So it would be essentially the same flow as touch a quarter, half circulate zoom. we've got the same type of flow, the forward circulating followed by the zoom. Guido, you had your hand up first, and then Jeff.
Yeah. I would say it's the same thing as many others. Yes, you have the forward motion by the half tag, but when you look at dancers and the way the half tag action is described in the definition, they are more or less still turning right at that moment. In this case, because it's a turn to the right. And then they have to go, the leaders have to go backward on the zoom away from the others, and they really don't have hand contact to push away. So a full circulate would be better than just the half tag, which is almost more or less a half a circulate.
Yeah. So what you're saying is because the circulate action is very short coming off a right turn, it does not have the same feel.
The mass of the bodies is still turning towards the right.
Yep. They're moving forward, out, and to the right. And that half tag is kind of like that, followed by that. Yeah. Jeff, you had a comment?
Yeah, like from where you did before, heads lead right. Boy walk, girl dodge, then zoom.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll look at that one in a second. Alan, you had a comment for Guido?
Muted.
You're muted, Alan.
Sorry. Okay, now the same action comes across a crossfire. It's exactly that same dance action into either a peel off or a zoom, or a couple's hinge, and then half tag. It's the same traffic pattern all around. So
it is the same traffic pattern. I understand what Guido's saying. We don't do a half tag as a release, step forward, right turn, and then step forward to the new dancer. A half tag is generally done from a two-face line as the center dancers are going to do a hinge and take that little tiny step forward for the half tag. If it's a right-hand wave, they're going to do that hinge, take a step forward, which has the same kind of action as star through and zoom. It's very quick, even though it has technically the forward action by definition. The way it's normally danced would make that awkward for some dancers, especially if you had the lead dancers were the ladies, because they're used to doing that turn the other direction and going off. Now they're turning completely the right and going off. It's exactly the same type of an action, even though there is that one step forward. It would make it tight. It's not as bad as star through and zoom, but it's something I would personally not use often, but it's not incorrect. It just has that awkwardness of flow.
You have more room from that title two-face line half tag and zoom as if you have from, let's say, facing lines or static square star through and zoom.
Yep.
Because especially in a static square where the centers are facing each other, it's a lot tighter. But here, when you call from the title two-face line, you call a half tag and then zoom, the dancer in front of the leader in the tandem is walking forward, is walking away, is making room. So it's not a room positioning. I just think about, let's say, dancers who opt in for horizontal expansion. When they turn their right or turn left, then they have to turn left, right. The body mass they carry around with them is still turning the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that tightness and the body in motion tends to stay in motion in the direction it's going. You're forcing that change because of the tightness of it. If all dancers in the real world danced perfectly according to the definitions, we probably wouldn't be having these discussions in the first place, but that's the reality. We have done it wrong for a long time with things like star through and zoom. This was the figure that was just said, which was lead to the right. Okay, if we do a boy walk, girl dodge, followed by a zoom.
That's okay.
Now, what do you think about this action for the ladies?
Not good.
Okay, so we've got sideways, forward. What do we think about a side step and a forward action?
Don't have any problem with that.
Neither do I. I don't have a problem with that, except on walk and dodge partner tray. Wait a minute, that's a side step and a forward action. That's a forward turning action. Side step and forward action is very, very common, and it's a very common dance action that we have. In most cases, when we have that, there is a hand contact to assist with making, like walk and dodge partner trade. There's a hand contact, even though that's not the best body flow. That's what makes it comfortable. Like star through and zoom, even though there's hand contact, that's how it became acceptable. It's not acceptable. In this case, I don't have a problem with it because forward sideways or sideways forward is a normal part of dance action. That's called dance, and it's in every dance form around the world. As long as it's not abused, I don't have a problem with it. Jeff, did you have a comment?
Yeah, from that same setup, heads lead right or whatever, pass through chase right. Boom.
I was going to come with you. Can I come with you?
Okay, so let's have a look at it. So we've got a pass through. Okay, forward action, a very tight call on chase right, but quite commonly used. Followed by there's the chase right. Followed by a zoom. Any comments on that one?
All right, darling. Yeah.
No? I don't have a big problem with it other than the tightness of the square, and if your dancer is if your dancers are used to this type of dancing, and this is more into the extended applications of chase right, I don't have a problem because the dancer that is doing the zoom action is coming off of a forward flowing action, the same as a circulate, and the dancer that's doing the turning action off the chase right is following that with a forward action. To me, that is as comfortable doing it in a column as it would be from doing it in the wave type action. That's my comment. I'll throw it out there for discussion.
I agree.
Okay, well, sorry, go ahead, Alan.
Talking about chase right, then if you do, I've heard called heads lead right, chase right.
Okay, just a second.
And that would have to be very tight for the girls, sure.
You're talking just the centers, correct?
Yep, centers. Yeah.
No. That's like doing centers flutter wheel, you know.
So it's very tight.
There you go. Now we'll really get wonky. Okay. If you remember very early in the discussion we had this. Okay, so there's the chase right. My opinion is that would be very, very tight, very awkward. It's not mechanically and kinesthetically wrong or technically wrong, but for dancer delight and comfort, that is just flow and size wrong. Okay, so if we do a chase, follow our chase right, we have leaders and trailers. If I called a zoom here, who's going to zoom? Who's the leader? This person's a leader, this person's a leader, this person's a trailer. This person's a leader, this person's a leader, that person and that person are trailers. Oh, wait a minute.
You've only got one trailer.
Yeah. but we've got the two leaders acting as trailers, and the reason that happens is dancers are taught to dance as a split action when you have calls like that. If you give dancers more than one option, 99.99% of the time they'll take the one that you don't want. That's Brian Hotchkie's rule of dancing. Make sure that you know what that you want them to do, because they will do what you don't want them to do if you give it open. Okay. And this is the other reason why you do not use computer programs to write your choreography. You can use them to check, but if you were writing choreography and you called something like that, this computer program will dance that perfectly. Your dancers will not do that. Okay, I think we've done Zoom to death. I actually put about 5 minutes on Zoom. I thought it would take about five or 10 minutes to agree on Zoom. We've been talking for about an hour and a half, which shows that there is a lot of room to talk about things that we think are good but aren't good. I'm going to let John Casey have the last comment on this, and then Mike Gormley has been waiting in the wings for quite a while with a change of topic, and we'll go to Mike.
Did he just leave?
Oh, did he? Oh, okay. John.
Yeah, I was just thinking that last movement that you've got on the screen there, you're talking active dancers.
Yep, that was actually one of the other topics that we had for today. Active dancers. This is a topic that came up. I got 4 emails on this. Reset. If I do heads past the ocean, centers trade. Okay, this is another one of these questions on active dancers as opposed to passive dancers. Now, common sense would say if you've defined your active dancers and your dancers are used to this, if I do heads past the ocean, my heads are the actives, my sides are not involved, and I call centers trade, it should logically, to the dancer's mind, be the centers of the active dancers. In this case, it would have been the girls. By definition, come on. By definition, who are the centers? And that's the whole
wave.
No, by definition, I have a wave which is in the centers. If I say centers swing through, that's all the centers because they're defining that. If I say centers trade, or if I say girls trade, centers trade, or if I say girls do something and then a centers thing which has doing a split action, it's going to be what we ended up with was centers trade. And that's the center wave being split in half. Logically, and I think we can all agree that common sense says we want the girls to trade if I say centers trade. Would we all agree with that?
Well, Mel, what I've seen is it's a very centers traded.
Yep.
I'd say center ladies trade.
Yeah.
I call this all the time, and I always say those girls trade.
Exactly.
Same girls trade, yeah.
And this goes into what we were saying in the previous. If you make it clear to your dancers what you want, and don't give them the choice, because there are a lot of dancers out there that do like to read the definitions or do like to go to taminations. There's a lot of callers now that actually give their dancers the tamination site, set little exercises up for them to look and learn in taminations and Colorama what to do. They've now got it in their head. Centers is, that's what they want. And the simple clarification is take those extra choices away. Past the ocean, those ladies trade. Past the ocean, same girls trade. Past the ocean, very center ladies trade. Anything that clarifies to make it easy for the dancers that doesn't interfere with your timing is going to help you as a caller.
One thing I wouldn't call from there is a partner trade.
Yeah. I don't even know what would happen for that. Let's have a look here.
Oh, it used to be defined like that. Partner trade used to be defined from a mini wave.
Yep.
Until Cherry Story objected terribly. and made it a lot more complicated.
And this falls into the same rules as calling from facing lines. All 8 circulate. Some callers do that. Some callers do that specifically for reasons. You call all 8 circulate twice from facing lines. Ooh, what do you want to do there?
You want to do a pass through and a putt and then ends trade, centers trade.
Yeah. And this is where we get into the ocean wave rule and the facing couples rule, especially
at the same time.
circulate, because circulate does not apply to ocean waves. Or sorry, the circulate rule and the facing couples rule does not apply to circulates, I should say. Facing couples and ocean wave rule do not apply to circulate. It's a defined movement from different formations and has a different connotation. And trying to apply them just confuses things. Does this answer the question that I think this is where Mike was going? I think, Ed, you were saying the same thing. Does this answer what we're talking about?
When I would call a circulate from here, I would expect parallel ocean waves as a result.
From where? From here?
From here.
Yes.
Okay.
A circulate would give parallel ocean waves.
Yeah.
Not that the dancers would do it, but
Oh, I don't think it's legal.
Well, wait.
Why?
You don't really have a circulate.
Because there's no circulate path to find for the centers.
Right.
well, the centers go to the person to the position in front of them.
No, that's not what a circulate is. A circulate requires a defined path, predefined.
It does. In the centers, the only defined path that you really have for the very center, you could do the center 6 circulate and really end up with a funky situation, because that would meet the technical definition. The ends, of course, would trade. The centers would step forward, and they would make, because they're occupying the same location, step to a mini wave. So you'd have that awkward wave of 3. But you're right, Chris. You have no defined path for the circulate on the outside. So these 2 outside girls would have to essentially go around the square to trade. That's their path. And these center 6 would have to end up in a 3 and a mini wave of 3 by following the technical definition. And that to me would just be insanely cruel to do to your dancers.
What sort of a formation would you end up in if you had parallel left-hand ocean waves and you called all 8 circulate slide through?
Oh, that's a cute one.
Yeah, I use this at caller school sometimes.
And the answer is?
Lines out.
Diamonds.
Diamonds, it should be.
Facing diamonds.
Well, depending on who are in the centers.
Yeah, but now it's the boys.
You could have a funny diamond, or you could have a facing diamond.
Here it's a facing diamond.
There.
And if you have a boy and girl in the center, it's another thing.
It's a funny diamond.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here's the question. Would you actually end up in diamonds? Because who are you doing the slide through with?
The only people that can are the centers.
That's incorrect.
No. It's a pass-through, and the pass-through is right shoulders.
That you're absolutely right.
Brian, I was prepared for that. Just before that session, I still have it on screen. I'm doing combinations for slide through.
Right. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I use it at caller school from time to time. Ask the students what sort of a formation you would end up in if you had parallel left-hand ocean waves and called all 8 circulate to a slide through.
I question what your dancers would do.
Yes.
They'd usually go home.
That's after they've thrown things at you.
Yes.
Alan, Alan, they do the big 0 module. You know, you start at home, go to a dance, and then you go back home. It's a serial module.
I'm putting these up just to show where people are looking at.
Talking about circulates from lines, but inverted line, the circulate's legal, isn't it?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Even from 3-in-1 lines.
Yes.
And now they've changed the definition of trade by. Some of the routines that I used to use calling trade by, I now got to call circulate instead of trade by.
What do people think happens if you have a left-hand mini wave and you call slide through? That's what you were saying, right? That's the example that we were doing.
Yes.
It's not possible by the definition.
Yeah, and that when you go into slide through, it doesn't clarify. What slide through the definition says pass through, and the boys will always turn right, the girls will always turn left. That's the paraphrase. But to find out how that rule applies, you've got to go back to the basic definition of slide through, which is clarified in there. Pass through from a left-hand ocean wave, making an implicit use of those who can, in other words, the centers, and expecting only the centers to be active is rarely used and goes against dancer expectation. Use centers pass through or centers step through instead. It's one of those things that falls into is it technically correct? And the answer is yes. You could call a slide through from here and only the active dancers would be the boys doing basically a single hinge, and the girls aren't able to do anything. Unless you actually work this and you play with this with your dancers, I would anticipate that your floor is going to crash about 90%.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would never call it unless I was doing a workshop or something like that.
What you would get on this.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree about the slide through. I was trying to figure out. I see. So the example that you were doing was about the implied those who can business.
Yeah.
I got you.
And that again goes to the issue of if you called that, you're asking your dancers to know the definitions and the intricacies from different variables, what they can and what they cannot do, extrapolate that from the basic program to the mainstream program, apply a definition aspect from an unusual formation, and do the action in 2 beats of music.
I just don't think it's
that's a caller's job.
Yeah, I'm not at all convinced that the trick with the diamonds ending is that's even legal to call.
Yeah, it's
just because of,
yeah, and this is the way it's defined. It's not illegal to call. It should be. And it's clarified in the basic definition is using the call as implied, those who can from left-hand waves is rarely used and confuses the dancers. That's what they say. Rather, what they should say is using it from a left-hand wave and expecting the centers to do a hinge is just stupid. It confuses the dancers. It's bad choreography. Don't do it. That's what it should say.
Yeah, but
it's actually got that example in there though.
Yes, it does. In the mainstream definitions, if you look at slide through, it says pass through, men face right, women face left. That's the entire thing. Okay, so in order to define that, you have to go back to the basic definitions for left-hand waves, where they define the pass through. It should be up on your screen there. Pass through from a left-hand ocean wave, making use of the implicit or the implied those who can and expecting only the center dancers, because they're the only ones that can, is rarely used and goes against dancer expectation. In other words, it's technically legal, but it's a really bad idea.
Can you reverse slide through?
Yeah. No. The thing is, Al Stevens.
That's just nasty, Alan.
Yeah. Al Stevens.
I love it.
Ran once into this trap. He was hired for dance in Czechoslovakia in the early 90s. And one of the callers called pass through from a left-hand wave. And Al Stevens, in an ocean wave, as a end dancer, started to do a left-hand pass through. And he got called back, saying, you can't pass through here. It's only the centers.
Yeah.
And said, well, you're technically correct, but you're calling differently than everybody else in the world.
Yeah, and this is one of the things I used that in the example when we had the left touch a quarter, center zoom, all eight circulate zoom. That was called an open dance, and I believe it was what was that dance? I think it's held in the Czech Republic. You have all these different levels of dancing, and you've got everybody from basic to C1 at this dance, and everybody's dancing it, and it's a very high level dance as far as the choreography goes. But it's not unusual because this is the choreography that is used in a lot of places around the world. When definitions go out, this is what is used to teach dancers in different languages, is the definitions. And a lot of the choreography that's out there is copied, but also a lot of callers that learn in different languages learn to explain, learn to teach, and they say, well, these are only examples. This is the way it's defined. We need choreography to use the movement so our dancers can dance the dance. It's also the reason why in places like Germany or Sweden, you have basic lasts a year or 2 years, mainstream lasts a year or 2 years, and they have a lot of fun with it because they dance inside out, upside down, and backwards. And for a lot of places, that used to be considered normal. It's not so much everywhere else. I think it still is pretty much in the Czech Republic because they just use everything and anything. But we have to be really, really careful on that. And if you go to a dance there and you get, for instance, in a left-hand wave, pass through, they expect only the centers to do something. Because you'll get pass through and centers face right, or pass through and face in, there's your quarter tag, those kinds of things, which is considered normal dancing. Here in Australia, unless you do DBD with guys like Jeff, or there's a workshop or Brian that is doing something specific, you're never going to see that choreography.
There's something like
Jeff. I got Jeff first, and then Guido, and then Brian.
Yeah.
And then John. Jeff?
Yeah, well, starting from that facing diamond, crossfire. And from there, coordinate.
Oh, come on.
That wasn't enough. This is strange. Let's move on.
You're showing off, Jeff.
Little bit different.
You're using all plus calls.
Is it going to do it?
Oh yeah, believe it or not, all of these things are technically legal.
Oh, I know it's legal. I just didn't know if the contaminations would do it.
Well, it's done something anyway.
No, that's it did the thing. Yeah.
And you can go on with that, but this is the kind of thing that, yes, you can call this, but unless you're calling, and I don't know if you were dancing in a very high level DBD type floor in Czechoslovakia, this would probably be, oh yeah, that's not a problem, away they go. If you called this at a, I'm called to do
Not
a
at a national
plus dance at the national convention in Tennessee or in Jackson coming up, or wherever it is, you'd be booed off the floor.
If you called this one at a challenge dance, people, particularly the coordinate, I guess, might not love it any more than anybody else, but they would do it. But if if you called that earlier thing with the left hand waves and the slide through, the people would kill you and not buy it just as much as anybody at any other level.
The one that catches Australians who are used to dancing both parts is when they got set up where only one couple in the line can do the California twirl, and they'll call a California twirl, and of course everybody tries to do it because they're so used to dancing both parts.
And it is one of those things. Those happen a lot, and there's a lot of callers that do that. It creates, especially with new dancers or dancers that are just getting their sea legs under them, if you will, with the higher experience. It tends to create the impression that I've done something wrong. I need to fix this.
I always like to throw in. I always like to throw in a what would the challenge dancers do? Because a lot of times people are like, oh well, a challenge you could do any. But if for all of those do your part things like with the just the centers doing it, for things like quarter through, which has a handedness built into the definition. I can't think of anything else really like that. That's fine, but all these other ones, they wouldn't find it amusing at all.
Okay.
I mean the coordinate and the crossbar ones they would, but but I'm talking about the implied do your part thing.
Okay, I'm gonna have to switch to a different program here. Can you see Colorama up on your screen?
Yep.
You got it.
Okay. Okay, so this is
as much as one can ever see Colorama. I shouldn't say that.
Sorry, Chris. This is another topic that came
no,
up.
I don't mean me. I was being snippy.
This is another topic that came up, and Taminations doesn't do this, but Colorama is set up to do this. Is a discussion has been occurring on 3 different levels with the use of do passo from other than a dar formation. And the main question is, can you do a do passo from a left hand wave or getting there differently? And the answer is, of course, yes, you can. The other clarification is do passo is further clarified from left hand waves to isolate boys starting on the outside. Now, part of that is where the controversy comes from, because the definition says a left arm turn as much as is necessary. So it can be a full turn all the way around to the a partner left, with the amount of turn being as much as necessary to go to the corner. That confuses a lot of people. It's the same with the Alaman left or things like that with a full turn. Sometimes you get half. And when you have one dancer doing a quarter turn and the other dancer doing a 1.5 turn, it tends to really, really mess things up. But one of the things that we wanted to look at was, what do you think of choreography such as, and I have to use voice because I'm terrible with Colorama, so bear with me just a second.
Colorama voice has been started. Vocabulary updated.
Okay. Heads promenade halfway. And why are you not doing this? All. Heads promenade halfway. Heads past the ocean. Extend. Swing through. Boys cross run. Do passo. Promenade, and then you would do a promenade home, of course. Okay, so what does everybody think about a do passo? If we look at that.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, and what we're doing is the cross run. There's the corner. We could have a girls run and promenade, but all we're doing is filling it in with the dos passo and promenade your corner home. Any comments? What do you think about dos passo from left hand waves?
It's okay. I like that.
I like it.
Now let's try a different one here. Let's just.
And when you finish, Mel, I probably have another one.
A left-hand wave in the middle would do it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Now sorry, I got to turn the mic off because it picks up everything that everybody says. When you do a dos passo, it actually says left-hand waves, boys on the outside. And it says that for a specific reason, because you've got that left-hand turn. You don't want to do that left-hand turn with a full turn. What would you think about calling a dos passo with boys on the inside? Dos passo, partner left, but with a full turn to the corner right, partner left. The argument that came up in that discussion is, well, then it's not a dos passo. It's a left arm turn, full turn, right arm turn, partner courtesy turn. Let's open that up for a talk.
I don't think I'd have an issue with it. I wouldn't like to do it from a left-hand ocean wave where the boys were facing out. So one is doing a half turn and the other one's doing a full turn.
Yeah, boy, girl waves. I agree with that 100%. Roz, what do you think?
I'm not sure on that one.
No? Guido?
I don't have a problem with that. It's just, well, as in many things, I don't like the change of the definition of dos passo. I like the old one a little bit better, where it says you turn the partner or directed dance left, go to your corner, turn that person right, and go back to the same person for a courtesy turn.
Yeah.
So when I started to acquire dos passo in my vocabulary, the amount of turning was not specified, just what you did with whom.
Yeah. And currently with dos passo, the amount of turning is still unspecified as far as the initial line, but they later on clarify it to isolate boys on the outside from left-hand waves. If you're going to change it, of course, you have to give a direction. The other part of this discussion was, and these are arguments that are coming up in various forums, dos passo starts with the partner. Now, defining partner from a left-hand ocean wave, of course, we're setting it up with the corner, who is your partner in the left-hand ocean wave. Well, who is your partner in the left-hand ocean wave is the first question. And to me, that's not really a bad thing, because I would say something, for instance, like heads promenade half. Actually, let's look at that. Let's just try this. Heads promenade half. Reset all. Hang on. Heads promenade halfway. Heads promenade halfway.
They've gone to sleep.
Don't think your voice is on.
Heads promenade halfway. Heads lead to the right. Swing through. Girls circulate. Boys cross run. Ladies trade. Dos passo. Promenade home. And of course it won't do that. Now, if I were to call that to a dance as a singing call, I would say something like heads promenade half, heads lead to the right, swing through, girls circulate, boys to the left, cross run, and the ladies trade with this girl, dos passo, her by the left, new corner by the right, back to the partner, or back to the corner, whatever I would say, keep her and promenade. And that's how I would get past that to eliminate that dancer confusion of who's my partner, who's my corner. It's
You
just
can
a
do
matter
a really nice routine in plus level if you had, for instance, heads right and left through, Dixie style to an ocean wave, boys trade, extend, left swing through, AC-doocy to a do paso.
Okay, let's have a look at it. I'm just trying to. Hopefully, I'm going to remember all this. Let's reset.
Boys cross, girls straight.
Hang on. What was the routine, Brian?
Heads right and left through.
Hang on. Heads right and left through. Yep.
Dixie style.
Yeah, heads right and left through. Dixie style to a wave.
Boys trade.
Wouldn't work. Yeah, you had to
extend. What was after the extend?
No. Where are we up to? Have you done a boys trade?
Yeah.
Okay. Extend.
And then
didn't do the right and left through.
Yeah, head. No, don't worry about what's on the screen. I'm typing it in chat so I can remember it and tell the dancers. Heads right and left through, Dixie style to a wave. Boys trade, extend, left swing through.
Yep. AC-doocy.
AC-doocy.
Do a do paso.
Do a paso. Okay. I just put it there because I wanted to make sure I got it. Okay, so let's reset this. No. Heads right and left through. Sorry. Heads Dixie style. Head boys trade. Extend. Left swing through. AC-doocy. Do paso. Promenade home. Yep. And that's really nice. And even with that, you could even use that same figure, do paso, take your corner promenade. You're just slightly off to the right. You're at 48 beats of music. 40. No, you're at 40. Yeah, 48 beats of music about there. So you've got 16 beats for a full promenade.
I often use that for a get out from the corner box with swing through, boys cross run, boys circulate, do paso.
Yep.
I have another one you probably don't have.
Okay,
if you set your square back home. I don't know if Colorama does it.
What I'm doing is I'll type your routine out in chat and then I'll tell Colorama.
Okay.
So
have just to start with the original partner, have the 4 ladies chain 3/4.
Okay, so 4 ladies chain 3/4. Yep.
Everybody circle left.
Yep.
Boys run right and do paso.
Nice.
Okay, let's see if it'll do it. 4 ladies chain 3/4.
And that's a full turn.
Circle left. Boys run right. Boys run. Boys run. No, it doesn't like it. Half sachet. Let's undo that.
You turn.
Well, that's okay. Boys, you turn back. We must be half sachet in the other direction.
Yeah, I was just going to undo that. Reverse half sachet. Boys turn back. Do paso. Okay, that's Colorama not doing it, but I look at that and I say, right, okay, the boy's got his corner as he's facing out. He's got his corner with the left hand. A do paso here is a half turn.
Yeah.
It's basically a left hand trade with a right arm turn. This was a common setup for Ice Cold and Red Hot back in the 80s.
And this is something I do right when I have the boys with the corner. The boys run to the right. They have the left hand to their partner, and then do paso. If the dancers are new to the routine, they turn around and search for somebody who do the do paso with.
Chicago.
This is my fourth one now.
Okay. Now, this is another one that just came in on the chat, so I'm going to look at that. And yes, that's fine. On that one, though, what I would say, Guido, is until your dancers are used to it, boys run to the left, or boys. Oh, now you're going to do it.
Yep.
You miserable thing. Boys run to the left, do paso, left to your partner, sorry, you've got your corner with the left arm, doing it that way. I would clarify it's a short turn somehow, half left, right, 3/4 back, and so on and so forth.
I usually have them start with the partner because I don't want to trick the dancers with that. And it's just a usage of do paso that nobody else uses.
Yeah, that used to be one of the common setups, especially with the half sachet setup in the right for the Ice Cold and the Red Hot. Jeff, you have your hand up?
Yeah, try another one, see if it'll do it. And that's Alley-Man left in the Alamo style.
And what do we want to follow that with? A do paso?
Spin chain through.
Okay, let's have a look. Alley-Man left in the Alamo style?
Yep.
Alley-Man left in the Alamo style?
That's not technically correct. You've got to nominate which hand you start with.
Yes, correct.
Spin chain
Starting
through.
with the right hand, all 8 spin chain through.
All 8 spin chain through.
Oh, just spin chain through.
Yeah. Spin chain through. Yeah, I don't. I'm just looking. I don't know this program well enough to find out if it has. Tell me with the right hand.
Up there in the top, click on all, because right now it's set for just the heads.
Yeah.
Right. Spin chain through. No. Spin chain through. Left spin chain through.
Now all 8. Try that.
Yeah. All 8 spin chain through. No. Yeah. I think this is because technically spin chain through from an Alamo wave has been considered improper, so it hasn't been put into.
No, you read Collad's definition.
They changed it. They rewarded those callers who used improper calling.
You mean
No,
the
it's
one
in there. It's written
you mean
down
the-
as a gimmick.
you mean the squeaky door gets all the oil.
Mm-hmm.
He's done it to us. We've danced it with Jeff.
Oh yeah, no, it used to be danced a lot. And dancers, yeah, and this is where, at mainstream, it is not allowed because it has. Sorry, I stand corrected. They don't have the word only. That's been taken off. So that's your formal, your common. Anything outside of parallel waves is considered extended. So gimmick, those who can additional comments spin chain through, use the same styling, right? Okay, so what we need to look at is Has the ARC made a decision on that?
Doesn't it say starting formation parallel waves?
Yeah, but it doesn't say the word only anymore. If it's restricted, it will say only. If it's listed, that's the use. It's not fully restricted anymore. Applications Review Committee. I suppose I better put Collar Lab in there, shouldn't I?
You won't find it in the committee brief.
Yeah, I just realized where I was in. From a THAR formation, the question is, does this application? No, it would not comply. That's a THAR formation. For all 8, spin chain through. Is it proper to call spin chain through from an Alamo ring? The decision was no. From a tidal wave, the decision was no. Yeah. So this is one of the things that go in, and that decision has not been changed. What has been changed, they've taken the word only out of the definitions because some people use it, and if it is being used, it's to be used at a club level, or if it's being used externally, to be workshopped. It's not a regular use of the call.
Yeah, but they have it written in the comments now. In the definition.
I'm pretty sure these are the latest definitions are out, unless they put a new one up.
They're in the comment to spin chain through. A little down.
Spin chain through can be danced as all turn those who meet, those who need. Oh yeah, spin chain through from an Alamo ring as a gimmick, and that's what essentially what we're saying. It's a gimmick. If you're going to use it, it's going to be done as a workshop, or not used externally unless you're workshopping people through it.
Same as parallel 3-hand waves, you need to nominate who is going to start. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Now the last one that I had on the Do Paso, if I can find Colorama. Where'd Colorama go? There it is. It's been trying to do what we've been saying here because I left the microphone on. Okay. Is heads lead right, circle to align, touch 1/4, all 8 circulate, boys run, touch 1/4, split circulate, cast off 3/4, boys cross run, Do Paso. And then it's a promenade corner.
That's pretty much the same routine that you had before, except that you're setting up your 0 box a different way.
Yeah. The difference that you have is in a setup like this, and this was my comment to the person that sent this to me, was you're setting up a boys cross run to a Do Paso, which very few people have a problem with. What I have a problem with the routine, and this is something to be cautious of, is if you get hyper focused on Do Paso from a left hand wave, you tend to forget about getting there. Now watch the flow, and this goes back to what Ed Trevor was saying earlier, and I think Alan was saying as well. when you look at the flow, we've got, okay, right turn, right turn, right turn, right turn, right turn, right turn, forward action, right turn, 3/4, our very first left turn. That's for the head boy. Now, if we look at the side boy, whoops, sorry, let's watch the side man, and we play routine. Right, 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 forward, short forward, right, right, forward, right 3/4 before the left turn. Now, for the girls, this flow is not bad because it's got right turn, sidestep, left turn, and things like that. Here's a question. What gender wrote this choreography, first off?
Oh, come on now. It wasn't a girl. It's called karma.
Yes, and yes, it was, but it just goes, this is what I'm applying to. Guys, we do this an awful lot to ladies because we look at choreography from the man's point of view and a right-hand progression or a left-hand progression. Ladies, you look at it from the lady's point of view, and we do. This is not absolutely terrible choreography, and I said it was Ed, but no, it was Guido was saying. It's the same thing with those, even if they're large circular motions, because we have a forward action on that, a tight turn, a forward action followed by a tight turn, a forward action followed by a tight 3/4 turn and another turn in the same direction before the left turn tends to create that overflow. It doesn't matter what the gender is, it's something to be aware of. And this goes to what I think it was you that, Brian, you said it. It's pretty much the same flow for the do passo, it's just a different setup.
Yeah.
When we focus on do passo or we focus on any focus material choreography, we cannot forget the journey to get us there, because that's as important as the wow of the focus movement. We've got to remember the journey, because if the journey is not enjoyable, you know, if you're fighting with your family and your partner all the way to Disneyland, it doesn't matter how good it is. If you're in a big argument not speaking together, Disneyland is not enjoyable. The journey has to be as good as the destination.
That routine, I think, would be better if it was started from a right-hand lady line rather than a zero line. Yep. Because then your do passo would be started with your original partner.
Absolutely. And let's just reset this. I'm just extrapolating off Brian's routine there. Head square through.
No, head star through.
No, hang on. I'm just going back to your last one before while it's in my mind.
Oh.
Heads square through. Slide through. Right and left through. Half sachet. Dixie style to a wave. Girls trade. Do passo. And promenade corner. Sorry, Brian, that was sticking in my mind when you said the Dixie style and leading into that from that. I said, well, how can we set that up differently? Well,
yeah.
A dope Dixie style with the boys leading is in itself unusual, but immediately followed by a girl's trade into the do passo is a really nice flowing combination. Sorry, now what is it that you wanted?
Oh, I was just going to suggest doing that other routine from a right-hand lady line instead of a zero line, so that you start the do passo and finish it with your original partner.
Okay.
So if you want to set it up, just head star through, pass through, star through, gives you your right-hand lady line, but you're out of sequence, so you do a right and left through.
Yep.
So what have you got? You got head star through, pass through, star through, slide through,
right and left through.
Right and left through. Okay, and then do your routine from there. You touch your quarter, single file circulate, boys run, etc. swing through, boys cross run, do paso.
I've been asked to put these in the chat because some people like to copy them down.
Right.
Okay, so heads star through. Centers pass through. Slide through. Right and left through. Touch 1/4. Circulate. Boys run. Swing through. Boys cross run. Do paso.
Yep.
Promenade home. And that also works beautifully as well. And that's a nice setup for the flow if you want to work do paso from left-hand waves. I personally have no problem with do paso from left-hand waves, but there's a lot of controversy about it. And there are some that say, oh, it's only allowed from a specific formation, such as the circle or favorite partners.
These are those colors. These are those colors where the comprehension skills are at a minimum.
Yeah. So anyway,
if we do a left and right grand rather than right and left grand, you could certainly put a do paso at home.
Yeah.
Which would be a nice use of do paso.
So
a
do paso home. Yeah.
So set yourself up. So you're
you'd have to
set yourself up and do an Alaman right. You do a left and right grand.
Yep.
For a do paso at home.
Yep, absolutely. And you can also set it up from the right hand lady and on the third hand, crossing on the third hand. So you're coming to your partner with the left hand. All of those kind of. Sorry.
I like the left
Fourth
and right.
hand, I should say.
Left and right grand because you can courtesy turn for the promenade.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things about do paso. You can either do that at the beginning or at the end, for that matter. Do paso ends with a courtesy turn by definition, or as otherwise directed. And you have to remember that. Yes, Jeff, you got your hand up.
Yeah. Firstly, with the Alamo style spin chain through, that leads you straight into a right and left grand. The other one I was going to give you was Alaman left. If you want to try it, Alaman left in the Alamo style.
Mm-hmm.
Swing through and a quarter through 3 times to a right and a left grand.
So let's reset that. Alaman left in the Alamo style.
Yep. Swing through.
Hang on. It's
oh.
Alaman left, Alamo style. Too slow. Alaman left in the Alamo style. Alaman left in the Alamo style.
They're not very responsive today.
Alaman left, Alamo style.
Now, schnell.
Alaman left in the Alamo style.
You can also click on it on the left there.
Swing through. Swing through. 1/4 through. 1/4 through. 1/4 through.
Right and left grand.
Oh, right and left grand. Sorry.
There are a few other movements you can use from there, like remake, swing the fractions, and whatever you like, and you can work things out. But it's quite interesting.
It is, and as I said, there's a lot of really good simple choreography, such as we started right at the beginning. Instead of star through and zoom, pass through and separate, pass through and cloverleaf. Use of material from slightly different formations or slightly different setups that get you into a smooth flow, so you can do things like zoom from a column, just the center zoom, as long as you've got that circulate action. And there's nothing wrong with from a column touch a quarter or left touch a quarter, all 8 circulate, just the center 4 zoom. That has just as nice flow as center circulate and same center zoom. As long as you're specific and the dancers know exactly what you want, that will flow beautifully. What does not flow is setting them up for failure. For instance, the title 2 phase line, half tag zoom, that has exactly the same flow kinesthetically, logically, and mathematically. That should all work perfectly. From a dancer's point of view, you very rarely see half tag danced as let go a hand, step forward, face right, and then extend or circulate that one position in the column. You usually see it as centers hinge and step ahead, which immediately causes the problem with the zoom. If we do sweep a quarter and zoom, that has a completely different flow than Ferris wheel and zoom, because of the right hand turn of the right hand dancer from a standard setup. Even though dancers today often do a Ferris wheel as a side sweeping, sort of a start walking, bend the line, and do a sweep a quarter from a bend the line type of thing to do the Ferris wheel, which will make it awkward. All of those things have to be taken into account. All of those things, such as dancer anticipation, delivery timing, your command timing, and your execution timing for the follow-on movements, all have to be taken into account when you want to use this type of choreography. And when you have things that I think we all agreed on, star through and zoom is a never call. Even though it's still quite popular and it's still used and it's still on recordings and callers are still using it. And these are not just new callers. These are named callers, people that write, people that have written choreography, some choreographic masters that still have this in their books that are still being sold. You've got, I don't know if it's in any of theirs, but if you get a book by Ed Foote or Jim Mayo or Bill Peters and things like that are going, these are the choreographic Bibles for new callers way back when. This kind of choreography may well be in those books because it was considered acceptable then. Just because it was wrong then but danced did not make it acceptable. It was bad choreography then, still bad choreography. Be aware of what you're copying and using it for flow. So those are pretty much the discussion points from today. Like I said, we didn't have a topic. I didn't expect to spend an hour and 20 minutes on Zoom, but we did. And it's open. I'm glad you all came in. For all you Australians, I wish you all Father's Day. For all you Americans, I hope you have a great bank holiday weekend. For everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful day. The floor is open if anybody wants to look at anything else.
You probably could use a Dixie Grand into a Do Paso too.
Sure, set us up for that.
I was trying to think of it while I was just sitting here, and it take a little while, but probably from a corner box, a right and left, circle a half and a right and left through with a half sashay and pass and start a Dixie Grand might work. That would give you your corner to promenade, but.
So where's head square through? Heads.
And square through.
Oh, right, square through, mate?
No, it's there. I just have to get there. I'm trying to use the click boxes rather than the boys. So square through, what did you have after square through? Was a slide through, wasn't it?
No, circle a half.
Right and left through with surface.
It should be circle 4 left 1/2. Okay. And what's after that?
Then a right and left through. This is me talking off the top of my head, but anyway, right and left through with a half sachet.
Yeah, bear with me. This is the first time I've actually used the click buttons and not talked to the program.
Pass through. Start a Dixie Grand.
Right, left.
Right.
Yep.
Then a do passo. Her by the left, new corner by the right. And a courtesy turn if you want to, and promenade with a corner.
Yeah, that's a 1-4 lady swap, but setting it up with the right progression, you're absolutely correct. That's out of sequence as well, but that's okay. But I know what you setting it up a do passo off a Dixie Grand, absolutely. Why not?
When Alan said before the left and right grand, if we can set up a left-hand ocean wave with partners holding left hands.
Mm-hmm. Reset. Actually, I'm going to switch over to terminations here.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's do. Okay. It doesn't end at home now, but from here, let's do a split circulate. A fan the top. I spin the top. And another split circulate. And then you can do, well, from here you can do a left and right grand.
Yes. I don't know if the... Okay.
Well, can you do a Dixie Grand from here?
Okay, that would be your left and right grand, except you would end pretty much in your home position facing.
Thank you very much.
And what I did at a call lab convention once, I had the same thing set up from a right hand ocean wave, and I called.
Sorry, what was that?
Called the same thing.
Oh, say.
Okay, and call the same thing. This split circulate, spin the top, fan the top, split circulate, fan the top, spin the top, split circulate, turn through left and right grand, and then you could finish at home with a do passo.
Yeah. So if you called the left and right grand from your initial setup, where you would end up would be a little bit before. You'd have everybody pretty much standing at home because they would round that off to a circle. And you would be in your home position. The do passo would end with a courtesy turn at home. and maybe a small sidestep adjustment if necessary, but it probably wouldn't be necessary because the dancers would adjust. And yes,
dancers would make it nice and beautiful.
Yes, they would.
You could try, I'm not sure whether this is going to be okay or not from a static square, but I don't know whether terminations will do it. All 4 boys lead right.
And that's pretty much where you'd end up for your do passo,
yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, what were you saying, Alan?
All 4 boys lead right.
I don't think terminations will do that. I don't know if Colorama will do that. 1 second. Boys lead right.
Star through.
Star through.
All 4 ladies chain 3/4.
Ladies chain 3/4. Girls star right 3/4. Girls cast off 3/4.
Circulate 3/4.
Girls star 3/4.
Girls, go back to your partner.
Centers, all 4 girls trade. No. Girls trade. Star through.
Just have the ladies.
All 4 ladies hinge.
Will they circulate?
Girls circulate.
Twice.
Girls circulate.
Yeah, that's right. Keep going.
Girls circulate.
Courtesy turn.
Courtesy turn. Partner trade.
Yeah, no, that doesn't give you what you want. You want the courtesy turn. Because the next call was going to be all 4 couples lead left.
Bend the line. All 4 couples lead left.
Ladies run.
Girls run
into
left.
a do. Into a do passo. Yes.
And yes, that would work. Even though that's very, very choppy and awkward because of the commands we had to use. Yes, you're absolutely right. Boys lead right, star through, ladies turn 3/4, courtesy turn into it.
Ladies chain gives you the courtesy turn proper.
Sorry, yeah. Ladies chain, the courtesy turn, all 4 couples lead to the left, boys run to the left, do passo.
Ladies run. Ladies run.
Or sorry, girls run to the left, do passo. Yes, that would work.
That might even fit into a singing call. Yeah.
Oh, shut up. Not you, Alan. The machine keeps beeping because it's picking up all the conversations trying to do the choreography. So that's a lot of things that we've... Oops, I don't want to save that routine. Reset. No. That's a lot of material that we've pretty much talked about on a lot of aspects. I think I'm actually thinking that these open forum discussions on just bring your opinions, bring everything that you want, or if you have something to talk about that is of an issue or has been an issue, might actually be good. I thank Mark for doing this because he actually set these things up when I was in the hospital, just having open forum discussions, and they led to a lot of discussion points on topics that aren't really a full-blown presentation, but end up being long discussions with different ideas, and that's what these forums are all about. So thank you very much for everybody coming in today. Hi Yolanda, welcome. Coming in at the tail end.
Yes.
Anybody else have anything they wanted to look at?
Thank you very much for running the session, Mel. You've done an excellent job.
Okay.
Sorry I'm late. I didn't realize it was on, so I will watch the recording.
Okay, so I'm just going to put in the chat before you go. These are some of the topics that were covered. I have done synopsis. Oh, sorry. Am I sending that? I'm sending that to you, Brian, aren't I? It should be going to everyone. Why is this not? Okay, so we talked about this. We talked about old material. I haven't put all of the star through zoom things, but why is this not copying? Here's a synopsis of some of. Okay, it's not going to copy. I don't know why, but.
We're cooked now.
Hello. Hi.
And you're gonna have to mute yourself there, Yolanda.
And I just came in. Oops.
Chat. Where's my chat window gone? Everyone. We didn't talk about pass through and bend the line versus pass through and cast off 3/4. That's a topic we can cover. Another one. We didn't talk about right and left through versus pass through and wheel around. And the expectations of body flow. And we did talk about sorry, bear with me because this is just for some people that like to copy the chat into their we did talk about do passo from left hand waves. So I'll put some of the stuff that was there.
And we had some great dad jokes.
Well, I don't know if great. I don't know if great would be the operative word there.
No, probably excellent would probably be better, wouldn't it?
Okay.
No, I think it depends how you spell the great, whether it's great or great.
Well, hopefully the jokes will be on the recording as well.
True enough. So anyway, I put into the chat. Oh my goodness, did that all go to Brian again?
No, I've got it.
I don't know why, Brian, but my chat seems to be defaulting directly to you rather than everybody. It happens all the time when I get out.
It's his magnetic personality.
Must be, yes.
Could be.
I thought we'd get something we could agree on, Brian.
Well, we usually do agree, Alan.
Yes, it's good fun. Thank you for the morning, Mel. I've enjoyed it. I'll go and do my dad duties now.
and I found why we do have some callers that are colorblind when we use the choreography and things like that in Tamination. So if there is a comment like that, please let us know, especially with color blindness, because for most callers, when you're looking at choreography, some things become very, very obvious. It's just an instantaneous decision. It's like it just came out of the purple.
Very good.
4 seconds? Oh my God.
Oh yes, it's like, okay, you did say the worse the jokes, the better, right? In the email. I think you just managed.
They're judged by the length of the pause.
Yeah, that's why I was counting 1, 2, 3, and then it started.
Well, I thought you were being serious for a change.
That's the whole point of setting them up properly.
Since Hannah and Lars left, they've sent me a dad joke to share with you. Why does a stork stand on one leg?
I don't know. Because if
I
he stood
didn't
on
either.
two legs, he'd fall down?
Sorry?
Because if he stood up with two legs in the air, he'd fall down?
That's right. If he lifted the one leg off the ground, he'd fall over. Yes.
That's what we call... See, that's the kind of dad joke that you need to write down on paper. And the reason? It's terrible.
Terrible, yes.
Yolanda, you might be glad you missed the jokes.
Yes, and I'm just thinking, if you guys knew what I was doing while this was going on, I had enough WD-40 on my hands. Do you guys have that in Australia, Mel?
Yes.
We do.
Okay, okay, good.
Oh, yeah. WD-40 is international.
I ended up taking two wheelbarrows apart because one of them had a tire that was flat and we couldn't fix it, so then we had to take it off another wheelbarrow.
Hey, trivia fact about WD-40. It's called water displacement 40th try.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Do you know why a push bike won't stand up by itself?
Because it's too tired?
Absolutely. Very good. Very good.
See, my goal in the world with these choreographic lessons and everything else is to make it so that new callers, experienced callers, they find a lot of interesting. I don't want square dance choreography to become like chess. I had a friend of mine, and we used to play chess together, and we said, okay, let's make this interesting. So we did. We stopped playing. Come on, somebody's got to have something out there.
Well, I'm going back to playing the colors checkers, so nobody's off the hook.
See, with me, because I'm a council ranger, I do a lot of infringement notices and write fines and whatnot. And I had this lady come up to me the other day, and she was part in, part out across 3 different lanes on angle parking. And she come up and thanked me for the note that I left on her window, because right on the envelope it says parking fine. Oh.
Yes.
I can see what this conversation was like, Ross.
If just as well Susan's not here, you'd have to spend the whole night explaining it like you did in Whyalla one time.
I know.
I'm waiting. I was hoping that I would get a dog for Father's Day from one of the kids so that I could call it naked and use that joke of mine.
Yeah. Well,
there is one called A Dog Named Sex, and that's quite clever, but it's quite lengthy.
Yeah.
Have you heard that one?
Going out to have sex in the street, but
Speak up, Rose.
Go on.
No, it's a whole. It's a really long one. I can email
We've
it
got
to you.
time.
Okay.
No, I'll email it to you.
Yeah, well, I was.
It's quite clever. I mean, even sex went to the wedding. You see, so it's quite clever how they've done it. So.
I went to work for government. I used to work at a toy factory, and I was making 6 figures a year, but I was voted the worst employee at the toy factory. So now I work for the government.
Ha ha ha. Bill McCarty used to tell a joke
somebody give me a COVID joke or something. You know, let's be topical. Anybody got a COVID dad joke?
No.
COVID dad joke.
I mean,
well, only the one that I used earlier, where now's not the time to go surrounding yourself with positive people.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since we've been in lockdown and quarantine, I've only been telling inside jokes.
Well, my daughter lives in Newcastle, and when we first got into this being restricted to home, she rang me one day and she said, "The police have just left my house. And I said, why? I said, how come the police came to your place? She said they told me that if I want to exercise by running around the house naked, I have to do it inside.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
No, nobody's going to give you that one, Brian.
Oh, dear. I didn't even get a groan.
That ranks right up there with women should not have children after 36. Because quite frankly, 36 children is enough for anybody.
Absolutely, yes. It's like the 16-foot alligator. You hear about the 16-foot alligator? Normally they only have 4.
This is another one that only works in English.
Oh, is it? Oh, right. Okay. You'll see, alligators normally only have 4 feet.
Yeah, I know. This is one. I have one that's, it could be a little difficult. I lived in Switzerland for quite some time, and a guy called Uli Heiniger from Switzerland went to the United States, and he caught speeding. And as he has learned, well, he put his car to the right, waited, and saw the sheriff step out of his car. The sheriff was about 7 feet tall and 250 pounds heavy, and black as the night is dark. And when they get into conversation, the sheriff asked the guy, "What's your name?" And he said, "Heiniger."
Heiniger.
You don't say Heiniger to a black sheriff, even if it's your name.
Oh, no, it doesn't work in English so much.
No, Heiniger is a very common Swiss name.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you're an American, you're talking to a sheriff who's blessed with a lot of pigments, and he asks you for your name, and you say, "Hi, nigger."
Hi, nigger, if you haven't got it.
Yes.
I was just watching a lot, and then,
No, I was just like, it's just not my kind of joke.
No, but this is a real name in Switzerland.
Yeah, it's common in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave you with the thought that if you give a man a plane ticket, he'll fly for a day, but if you push him out of the airplane at 30,000 feet, he'll fly for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
But true.
Was supposed to be.
It's like brown paper underwear. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Oh,
Or
Yeah.
you know what? That falls into, what do you call a guy that refuses to fart in public?
This is like
a private tutor.
This is like the toilet paper you can use both sides. The success is in your hands.
Brian, what do you call a bear with no ears?
What do you call a bear with no ears? I don't know.
B.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's like Captain Kirk, the only man with 3 ears. Yeah, he has a left ear, he has a right ear, and it's the final front ear.
Yes. It's like what is a pirate's favorite letter? Know what a pirate's favorite letter is?
Mm-hmm.
What's its favorite letter?
R.
No, it's P. Because without the P, it's just irate.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that.
Oh yeah,
That's good.
and
I like
what's
that.
what's a
Talk Like a
Mormon
Pirate Day is coming up soon.
What was
and
that?
There's Talk Like a Pirate Day is coming up.
what's a
Not a joke,
Mormon's
it's a holiday.
uh-huh. And what's a Mormon's favorite wine? Most favorite wine?
Don't know.
Mormon. What's a Mormon woman's most favorite wine?
Go on.
More kids.
Oh,
Oh, you're right. Yep.
Orchid's wine, yeah. A man walks into a magic forest, tries cutting down a tree. The tree looks at him and says, "You can't cut me down. I'm a talking tree." The lumberjack says, "You may be a talking tree, but you'll dialogue."
Yes, yes. Very good. Very
Now,
good.
I've never told jokes ever when I'm calling, but in a couple of weeks, one of the clubs I call for is going to start back up, and I think I will scare them by starting to tell a bunch of these jokes.
Why not? Why not? They're
like,
good.
oh God, what happened to this? A year and a half, and now he's back, and oh my God, now what?
Okay, well, here's one for you, Chris. A guy walks into a bar and the bartender says, "What do you want?" And the man says, "Just some fruit punch." And the bartender sighs, shakes his head, says, "If you want punch, you're going to have to wait in line." And the man looks around and says, "But there's no punch line."
Yes.
I found that dog named Sex. I was trying to put it in chat, but it wasn't working. So I'll read it out. Okay. Everybody who has a dog calls him Rover or Boy. I called my dog Sex. Now, Sex has been very embarrassing to me. When I went to get his license, I told the clerk I would like to have a license for Sex. He said, "I'd like to have one too." Then I said, "But this is a dog." He said, "I didn't care what she looked like." Then I said, "You don't understand. I've had Sex since I was 9 years old." He said I must have been quite a kid. When I got married and went on my honeymoon, I took the dog with me. I told the hotel clerk that I wanted a room for my wife and me and a special room for Sex. He said that every room in the place was for Sex. I said, "You don't understand. Every room in the place was for Sex."
Yeah,
I said, you don't understand. Sex keeps me awake at night." The clerk said, "Me too." One day I entered Sex in a contest, but before the competition began, the dog ran away. Another contestant asked me why I was just standing there and looking around. I told him I planned to have Sex entered into the contest. He told me that I should have sold tickets. "But you don't understand," I said. I had hoped to have Sex on television." He called me a show-off. This is a slightly different one to the one I had originally. When my wife and I separated, we went to court to file for custody of the dog. I said, "Your Honour, I had Sex before I got married." The judge said, "Me too." Then I told him that after I was married, Sex had left me. He said, "Me too." Last night, Sex ran off again. I spent hours looking around town for him. A cop came over to me and asked, "What are you doing in this alley at 4 a.m? I said, "I'm looking for Sex. My court date has been set for Friday."
Very good.
So that's a little bit different to the other one, because the other one, he wanted to take Sex to the wedding. So.
I heard about the two gay judges. I don't know whether you heard about the two gay judges. They tried each other.
These are terrible. They remind me of the garden I had, the herb garden I had when I was growing up. Good times.
But this is something like, what is the longest sentence?
I do.
Marriage? And that falls into what is the one item of food that will destroy any relationship? wedding cake. Okay, I put your joke in the chat there, Roz.
Okay. Yep.
I was trying to type as you say. I just realized I put your this is slightly different than the one I had originally into the typing as well.
You are a very quick typist,
Mel.
He is.
Yeah.
Unless he's got the program that does it from speaking and types.
No, I wish. Okay, well, I'm going to leave you with 2 dad jokes. What's the worst thing? What's worse than biting into an apple and finding a worm in it?
Not finding a worm?
Biting into an apple and finding half a worm.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you, everybody, for asking about my recovery. I am coming around well. I got my doctor's test results yesterday. I'm really upset about them because it turns out I'm not going to become a doctor, so I'll have to stick to square dance calling.
Oh.
Belinda, I haven't had any choreography from you lately.
I know.
You've been busy?
Yes, I have actually been substituting for one of the callers who had a family member that passed away. And so and it was theme based, so I ended up with extra homework and I just
That's all right, as long as you're okay. I hadn't seen you for
I'm
a while.
okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm okay. And I will get back to it. Yes.
That's all right. Yeah, I've been busy. I've been away. So got back now. So we went up to Alice Springs and very lucky because we were the only tourist bus. So we could go everywhere without crowds, which was really good. So, and when I got back, the very day I got back, they said they'd cancelled all tours till December. So we must have been on the last one. So very lucky.
We were booked on one to go on the 9th of September, and ours has been cancelled as well.
Was that AAT Kings or?
Yeah, AAT Kings starting in Adelaide.
Yeah, and they've cancelled all till December.
Then we were going from Darwin to Cairns and going up to the Cape York as well. So all of that was done by the board. And really you just almost can't book anything now without it's being corrupted in some way every time, just about, yeah.
Well, going from Uluru to Kings Canyon, we had 4 people on the bus. So you can see why they cancelled.
Yeah.
It's just
anyone can go to Queensland, you know. You just got to marry a footballer.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, it's amazing. The rules for football and everything else are so different.
Ross and Christine have been in Darwin and they've been wandering across the Northern Territory and into Queensland. And of course, they've not been inconvenienced in any way almost, other than they can't come home now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, we timed it well. We were lucky. So.
Anyway, I must away.
Yes, me too.
Been nice chatting.
No,
thanks, Mel.
Yep. Thanks,
Great
everybody.
to see everybody.
I'm off too.
Yeah, it was nice to see everybody, even if I popped in late.
Good to see you, Len.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good to see you, Guido.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.